So they're regarded as quote unquote separate episodes.
Right.
So when I say there's 58, that's, only 20 whatever, 27, 26 half hours.
Right. Wait.
26? No.
28.
No, 28. You're right. 20.
Wait, no. What'd you say? 58?
24. No, 20.
No, 29.
29. Jesus fucking Christ.
You know what? We don't need to do math anymore. That's bullshit.
I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
And this is The Cloister Room,
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things.
So we watched a lot.
We did watch a lot.
We watched all of the Dalek Invasion of Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And then we watched Daleks Invasion Earth 2150.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We did all those things.
That's a lot, but it's also just the same thing twice. So
it is. It's like, a rehearsal and then a second rehearsal.
So here's a question. In what order did you watch them?
I did the same, I thought about reversing it this time, but I did the same order that I did for the Daleks and Doctor Who and the Daleks, which was that I watched the canon episode before I watched the Peter Cushing movie.
Okay.
And I kind of wonder, I maybe regret that decision. I'm not sure.
Because I am sure that there were fans back in the day who saw the Peter Cushing one before having seen Dalek Invasion of Earth.
I absolutely do not doubt it.
Because, the Peter Cushing one was something you go to a movie theater, you could potentially go multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And Dalek Invasion of Earth, that was on when it was on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think for some people, the Cushing movies, would be considered for their personal experiences of Doctor Who. That's Doctor Who to them. That's their definitive version of at least these stories.
Yeah.
But not for me. Yeah. How did you like? How did you like the serial, the black and white television serial starring William Hartnell?
I started off thinking that I was gonna like this, and I thought, this is really cool. This is they're showing a lot of this world. They're doing a lot of world building, and I liked all the world building they did. But I don't know. Somewhere towards the middle, it really kind of lost my interest.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's exactly the same thing that was true about the Daleks.
It really, yeah.
And they're both written by Terry Nation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it kind of roused a bit at the end for me anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the very opening episode. And one of the things I love about the Hartnell era is because, some might see this as slow, but just the entire episode of them just walking around, sometimes just standing around, just kind of like wondering, well, what's the deal here?
Yeah.
And just like picking up I don't know, oh, this thing I found on the ground. Let's look at this. Let's consider this at length. It's obviously the new series would never do this.
No.
But even as late as the Pertwee era, they had kind of left this kind of storytelling in the dust where it was just it was more as soon as they walk out of the TARDIS, they're probably going to there might be a little bit of preliminary, looking around, look at these doors, look at this quarry we're in, or something like that.
Right.
Whereas with this, it's just this very eerie, slowly building sense that something's really weird going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed that. Did you?
I did. I really did. I liked them. I did. I liked them taking the time to figure out all these things, and they were all these elements were introduced kind of slowly. They introduced the Robomen. They introduced the Resistance fighter people. And they took the time to sort of just let us find out about what's going on, and not even really finding out what's going on, just finding out the background this world and stuff. And I did really like that. I thought that was really enjoyable.
Yeah, and the title, The Dalek Invasion of Earth, is kind of misleading because it's over. It's the Dalek occupation of Earth, really.
Yeah, and it is actually incredibly misleading because when I had heard of this story, that's kind of what I thought was happening, was that it was just like, Earth being invaded by Daleks, and that turned out to not at all happen, which is very weird.
Yeah, the invasion is past tense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. And this of course, as you know, is the second appearance of the Daleks, right?
Oh, it's the right. It has to be because they make such a big deal about them not being powered by static electricity anymore.
Yes, and then there's like Ian telling the Doctor, but we saw them destroyed on Skaro, which is funny because in the movie version that's the Doctor or Doctor Who says that. But in any case, we'll get to the movie in a bit. But it's interesting because the main premise of this story, I think, is more Daleks. Like, Daleks are back. You loved them, they're here again. And I think for a lot of people at the time, that was enough to just propel them through the 6 weeks of the story.
Yeah.
Whereas it's not for me, because
right.
I have no shortage of Daleks in my life.
Yeah, like with 50 plus years hindsight, chock full of Daleks. Yeah, we don't need this episode anymore. We really just don't need it.
And that's blasphemy, though. Because this episode, while I don't think it's actually lauded for quality, it's regarded as, like, iconic in the history of Doctor Who.
Really?
Well, it's for a few reasons. I mean, one is, like, at the end of the first episode, the Dalek rising out of the Thames.
Okay, yeah.
That's like it's a cool shot. Mm-hmm. It's a cool moment. It's shot in like this very eerie, slow way. Mm-hmm. And what that kind of signified at the time, I mean, not that it was like a deeply significant thing, but like where it stood at the time, like you've seen the Daleks in this crazy adventure on another planet, but here are the Daleks rising out of the river that runs through the capital of our fair nation. Mm-hmm. So that's like a big thing. Yeah, I guess it's like a big like statement of like, okay, it's the Daleks, they're back. So that in and of itself, that's like an iconic moment. Then there's also like about halfway through the story. Actually, I think one of the most interesting things about the middle part of the story is the scene where, God, it's so hard for me to remember because it's so different in the movie and I'm getting them mixed up. But I guess it's Barbara and Jenny are running around London. Is that right? Do I have that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like running around London landmarks, and some of them have like weird Dalek markings on them, and they're avoiding Daleks, and like it's like, hey, we're actually in London and there's Daleks. So like it's just like the imagery and stuff like that is iconic. And then of course like the ending scene where Susan leaves is also like, and the Doctor has this kind of weird speech about it.
Yeah.
That's an iconic weird speech.
Yeah.
That is actually replayed at the very beginning of the Five Doctors. That scene is replayed.
Right. I remember that. Obviously chopping out the relevant bit about Susan. Because that would just be weird.
No, I think it's.
I don't think it's in there.
I mean, it says like one day I shall come back.
Yeah, right.
Which is about Susan.
It's about Susan, but it's not overtly. I don't know. They cut out. I'm pretty sure they cut out the bit where he's talking about like you need roots of your own. And
oh yeah. That's not in there.
Yeah, that because that doesn't make any sense. But
no.
But the one day I shall come back. Yeah, that's in there.
And actually, that's like a dialogue lift from An Unearthly Child. I only realized this fairly recently.
Oh,
that like in An Unearthly Child, the Doctor says something to Ian or Barbara, something along the lines of, "Have you ever thought of what it's like to be, wanderers in the fourth dimension, cut off from our own people, with no way to get home? But one day we shall get back. Ah. Yes, one day." And in this he says, "One day I shall come back. Yes, one day." So it's got to be a deliberate lift of that, but I don't know. I mean, why? It just is.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
kind of neat.
That could just be that's just the way the first Doctor is. He's kind of nostalgic or whatever. He always wants to get back. Get back to wherever.
It's interesting because that was something that kind of excited me about the ending of the Day of the Doctor, where they don't say that line. It'd be kind of neat if they did, but he says like, "I'm going home the long way around."
Oh yeah.
And so I think there were some people who didn't like that episode, who one of their complaints was like, well, even in the classic series, the Doctor wasn't like, the Doctor's saying, "Oh, this is who I always was here," but that's not true in the classic series. And I was like, okay, it hasn't always literally been true, but in the very first episode, the Doctor is like a wanderer, cut off from his own people, who has no way to get back, but says that one day he will. So it's full circle here.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, to quote Colin Baker.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so I think that, like, iconic stuff elevates the story's profile more than people actually like it. Because parts of it are very good, I think, but overall, it's just not the best.
Well, yeah, it kind of... Well, no, and, like, the thing was, I was really, really, like, gripped by this story. Like, up until... I feel like after they got back out of the spaceship, that was when I sort of, like, my interest started to dwindle a little bit. Because that was interesting. That was all interesting. You know, that they were trapped, and the Daleks wanted to do some sort of intelligence test on the Doctor because they figured out he was smart. Although that doesn't really make sense that they would want to then take him and turn him into a mindless zombie. I don't know. I don't know how that follows, but you know, it's still interesting. You know, so and these things are all, you know, I don't know. It's just all very interesting stuff. And then I don't know. I feel like after that point, you sort of get them all just sort of like meandering towards the, like, where they ultimately all end up, like at the mine or whatever. I don't know. I almost have trouble like remembering it, and I'm actually like, because I watched the movie second, I think it kind of like overwrote some of my memories of the serial. But,
yeah, I think I'm struggling with that too, especially because I watched them in quick succession, and I've seen it before, but it always kind of fails to grab my attention, so a lot of it slips away, and some of those big iconic things just stick in my head, and especially like the first episode sticks in my head.
Oh yeah.
And then bits of the last episode, but yeah, like, because in the movie similar things happen for different reasons or two different characters.
Yeah.
Like, I guess Bernard Cribbins' character is a stand-in for Barbara. And Louise seems to be more of a stand-in for Ian, like, in terms of the stuff they do in the story.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
Or, like, some episodes, sometimes, like, Susan and her, like, carer tend to stand in for Barbara and Jenny, or something like that. Like, it's all over the place.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it would have been better if, like, some of, I don't know. Like, it's weird because I feel like, like they you know, switched some roles around for the movie and stuff, but I feel like, you know, despite the movie being an hour shorter, it didn't really, like, I don't think it lost anything.
I think we made that observation about...
I think we probably did.
About the other movie, too, and I think it's true. It feels like it's all in there.
Yeah.
And, you know, honestly, it doesn't feel that much shorter.
No.
But it does feel a little more, you know, fast-paced and stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a lot less of the, you know, very early in the story, just eerie wandering around and stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, it's got this entirely different narrative device where... what's his name? I honestly forget Bernard Cribbins' character.
I think it was Tom. Yeah. Tom.
That you think that would be a name I would remember?
Well, you know, you hear it so often. I'm sure it just, you know, kind of.
That's true.
You probably stop hearing it.
Yeah, exactly. So Tom, I like every time they were talking to him on the screen, I thought they were talking to me, and I was like, "What?
Oh yeah, that's terrible."
No, yeah. So like he's foiling a robbery or trying to foil a robbery.
Yeah,
and then wanders into the TARDIS. And the Doctor and Susan, his granddaughter from the previous movie, and Louise, a previously unknown niece. Because in the previous movie, it was his granddaughter, Susan, his other granddaughter, Barbara, and Barbara's boyfriend, Ian.
Right. Wow.
So those are the characters in the first movie. Barbara and Ian are gone. I have no idea where they went.
Right.
In this, but it's now the Doctor, his granddaughter, Susan, his niece, Louise, which I guess makes Susan and Louise like their first cousins once removed. Is that what they are? I don't know.
I don't know how first cousins and second cousins and all that stuff. I have no idea how that works.
There's a CGP Grey video about it. Do you know CGP Grey?
Yes, I've heard of him.
Yeah, he does these great, like, informative videos. He also has a good podcast called Hello Internet, and another good podcast called Cortex. Yeah, so in case you want some good podcasts, those are a couple of them.
I need to write these down.
Yes, you absolutely do. In any case, I mean, he does a video explaining it all, but I was just wondering, like, that they don't interact much with one another, Louise and Susan. They're not, you know, big foils, or their relationship is not important to the movie. But,
yeah.
But yeah. They're for some reason already going to 2150.
Because why not?
It's not really explained why, but I missed it. But Doctor Who and like when Tom rushes into the TARDIS, when he regains consciousness, they mention, oh, well, when you charged in, we were just about to go to 2150.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe Doctor Who lost a bet or something.
Yeah.
So, some of them wanted to go to like, or no, maybe he wanted to go to 1950 and they wanted to go to 2150, and so they flipped for it and then he lost. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Yeah, it's a very weird, like, unless they were like maybe hitting each year in order, like maybe they were just like marathoning through Earth years.
So are you suggesting that Bernard Cribbins comes from 2149?
Well, no. Obviously, you stop by for an hour or two, and then you have to go back home.
Oh, right, because that's where they originate. I kept actually just forgetting that. Like in my mind throughout the film, whenever Louise was on screen, my head went through the following series of thoughts. Oh, wait a second. If Louise is related to the Doctor, she's a Time Lord, right? Oh, wait. No, the Doctor's not a Time Lord. It's Doctor Who, the human scientist. So she's a human. But then I just immediately forget that, and I would have anew these series of like cyclic revelations.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think the issue, or I don't know, maybe not the issue, but I feel like the problem I had was that they kept on referring to him as, and I don't know how often this happened in the first film, but they kept referring to him as Doctor, which is confusing. You wouldn't think it would be, but it's confusing to me because I associate Doctor with the actual character, the Doctor, and if they had just, because he introduces himself as Doctor Who.
Well, yeah, and someone whose name is Doctor Who, you might reasonably call him Doctor,
right?
Like if you know Dr. Smith, you might just call him Doctor. Mm-hmm. If you know Father Father McDonald or whatever, you might just call him Father,
yeah.
or Reverend or whatever. So like that's a normal thing. It just doesn't feel normal,
right?
Because no, that's not the Doctor. That's Dr. Who.
Right, exactly. If they could have just called him Dr. that would be fine. I wouldn't have any problem with that.
I wonder if he has a first name.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it isn't. Maybe his first name is Doctor.
Do you think this human scientist, Doctor Who, do you think his first name opens a tomb on Trenzalore?
Maybe it opens like a gym locker on Trenzalore.
Yeah, because I had to imagine, like, if he had these two adventures that were analogous to adventures that the Doctor had,
right.
He must have had many other adventures. It stands to reason. It wouldn't just be two.
No, I don't think it would be.
I would think it would have to be either one or many. I think just two is too weirdly specific of a number for it to be that.
Right. That's the law. You either have none, you have one, or you have many.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's two. We've just proved that there are many. Well, and that's the thing, is we don't know what happened to Ian and Barbara, so presumably they probably died somewhere or something. I don't know. I mean, something happened to them, unless they just got tired of the Doctor traveling.
Yeah, well, I mean, if this Doctor has control over the TARDIS, then he presumably just didn't need to keep traveling with them.
Right.
Like, I think at the end of the first movie, the ending of the movie is them dematerializing, trying to go home, but ending up somewhere else.
Oh, right.
And it's like, oh no, but I forget where. It was like in the middle of a battlefield, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe Roman soldiers?
Maybe. That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so either... Oh, do you think... So either they got that problem sorted out, and then they were able to go wherever
that must
they
be
wanted.
it.
Yeah.
So they just dropped them back off at home. Maybe they sometimes come along trips, but they're not here today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
What do you think about the First Doctor? Because we've done a few First Doctor stories, and my impression is that you have never really come around to him.
I guess you might say that's true, more or less.
Is it still true?
I don't know. I mean, he's pretty good here. I think I don't know. I like coming around to him. I don't know. Maybe I have. I mean, like, insofar as like, yeah, he's the Doctor. Like, I mean, I think I've accepted that he's the Doctor. Like, I think I'm that far. So I've reached the acceptance stage. I don't know. I forget what stage that is. But it's no. I think yeah. I guess you could say that. I mean, like, he's still less. I mean, like, this is what, his second season here. It's
the second story of his second season.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, so he's still kind of maybe a little less patient and kind of like grumpy a little bit. Like, he's angry at Susan for something at the start of the episode, something about, or it was like, because I guess whatever she did basically trapped the TARDIS under all that rubble, I think.
Yeah.
And then she twists her ankle, and then he's
and he's a real jerk to her.
Yeah.
At some points in the story.
Yeah. So he's still he's definitely a different Doctor than what we've come to know in subsequent incarnations. But I think I like him for his own way, I think.
Yeah. I think the first Doctor is actually best experienced in Order.
That might well be.
And it's hard to do that because of missing episodes.
Right.
But whether you do recons or the audio versions, I found that as I was going through in Order, when I got to the end of the first Doctor era, I was like, wow, I'm really going to miss the first Doctor because I have really gotten to like him. After having started off ranking him pretty low in the overall ranking of Doctors, I honestly don't know where exactly he'd fall now, but I thought, he was very good. I enjoyed him, and yeah, so I always like seeing him, but he's not the easiest Doctor to love.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I do get that sense that, if you watch him in Order, he gets like gradually softer. I feel like that might be the case. I mean, as far as I can tell. I don't know if that's really true, but I mean, and also I think he sort of becomes like more curious of like he sort of becomes more like the Doctor who lands somewhere and wants to investigate. And I mean, he does that here, so I guess that's
yeah.
So I guess that develops pretty early on, I guess, but it's
yeah. I think just seeing it all laid out end to end, it becomes easier to see like that there are nuances to his character, and there kind of are, but yeah. Also, like, I don't know, some of the dialogue they have him say is just really weird. Probably the worst offender in my opinion is when he and Ian kind of first encounter the Daleks, and the Daleks say, "We are the conquerors of Earth," and the Doctor says something along the lines of, "Oh, conquer Earth, Well, in order to do that, you would have to destroy all living matter." And I'm like, I'm not sure I agree with that. I'm not sure I understand why you're saying that, but
well, I mean, if you're
he says it like he's being very thoughtful, like he says it in this really weird thoughtful way, like like he's really thinking hard about it, but he's also just being kind of like mischievous or something. I have no idea.
Right, like it's like a War of the Worlds kind of situation where like, the germs are going to get the Daleks,
Oh yeah.
That might have been an interesting story right there.
And in the movies it's magnets that get the
Right.
Daleks, which is actually kind of, it's fun to watch.
It is fun to watch. I can't say anything bad about that.
But in this is just a little more mundane. It's like they beat them by beating them.
Right. Yeah. Let alone that I don't understand their plan at all.
Well, their plan is to drive the Earth around like a spaceship.
I'm with you so
It's
far.
a pretty straightforward plan.
Right. I get that. I think that was also an episode of Invader Zim.
You're exactly right. But it wasn't Earth. It was
right.
the face on Mars and the butt on Mercury was what they came up with. These are control panels for planet battle thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It happened.
Right. So, this is an accessible premise to me. Like, I understand it, but I don't know why they want to do it is the thing. And I don't think it's ever really explained.
I think it only makes sense as one part of a larger plan where they want to pilot lots of planets as spaceships.
Okay, but now would they be using the Earth to get to the other planets? Like
no.
This is like a carpool?
What I'm suggesting is that this same thing is happening all over the universe.
Well, I got ya.
Daleks have dispatched, invasion fleets because this is at the ascendant point in their history. This is the golden age of the Dalek Empire, where they have decided that what we really need, the only thing that's left for us to do at this point is to get 1,000 planets and just turn them into spaceships, because
you'll be like some kind of interstellar biker gang.
Yes, exactly.
Where you've got no one would mess with you because you have a biker gang of planets.
Yeah, so and all they've done here is all the Doctor and his comrades have done here is to defeat the Earth arm of this project, but it's actually a much larger project.
All right, I got you. Right, because, conquering planets is one thing, but then the planets are stuck where they are. And, I think that's, one thing we learn, about, from history in general, trying to, like, invade Russia and things, is you spread yourself too thin, you're just everything's gonna fall apart. But what if your conquered lands could just come to you? Wouldn't that be great? If you could just, like, keep an eye on them by, like circling the wagons. And then who's going to stop you? No one. No one can stop you, because, this is the thing is, it's just a way to, I think at the end of the day, the Daleks just want to be organized, and they want to, like, master this, like they want to be masters of, the planets they conquer, but they want to be like meta masters. They want to be masters of themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying really hard to justify this.
Well, one of the things that this story kind of brings out is, like, people will complain about, like, the Weeping Angels and how the concept of the Weeping Angels kind of drifts over time. But, like, look at the Daleks. The first Dalek story was a story about a small group of the survivors of a war between two races that hated each other. And what was at stake in that story was, like, this group of survivors, the lone survivors in a city, a pathetic band of survivors, just happens to have the power and is trying to wipe out their hated enemy at all costs, because it's a parable for what's going to happen if we do nuclear wars on this planet or something. Like, you're going to ruin the planet and everything's going to be bad if nuclear war happens. That's what the Daleks is about.
Yeah.
Dalek Invasion of Earth is about a bunch of Daleks who no longer are reliant on static electricity, by the way, so aren't confined to a city. So the main thing about the Daleks was that they were confined to a city because they were relied on static electricity. These Daleks are not. And their plan is to hollow out the Earth and fly around like a spaceship for no reason whatsoever. So the notion that, like, the monsters of Doctor Who, that their concept, it just kind of drifts and like, we brought this monster back and it's just not as good as the first time because the concept is they're not keeping to it as much. The Weeping Angels are doing things other than sending people back in time to eat their potential days. It's like, yeah, that's true, but also that's kind of what Doctor Who has always done.
Right.
So I guess, not that I'm saying, like, it justifies anything, but I'm just pointing it out.
It's a long, proud tradition.
Exactly.
This is just how it goes. I think, that's the thing is, when you put it in those terms, like, I completely forgot that this is the second appearance of the Daleks ever. And it's so like really, they're so different. It's like, they went so far off the rails. They didn't just like fall off the rails. They, like, flew off the rails and landed on, like, a completely different set of rails. And
yeah. And the reason for that, I think, is because of the real world popularity of the Daleks, where, everyone wanted Dalek merchandise and they were such a huge hit that because they were that way in the real world, it was decided about the show that, whatever story we had about these, that story is not important now. These are just the Doctor's arch enemies. Yeah. That's just the thing you need to know about the Daleks. They're the Doctor's greatest enemy.
Yeah.
Because when the Daleks appeared in the Dalek, they weren't the Doctor's greatest enemy.
No.
There was nothing about the Daleks that made them a greater enemy than, like, the cavemen that he was enemies with in the previous story.
Oh, man.
So, like, but here, this story is the story that establishes the Daleks are the Doctor's greatest enemy. And I think that's true enough about, like, the Weeping Angels, too.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, not to the same extent, but, like, the notion of, like, it was the real world popularity of them that kind of warped what they were doing in the narrative.
Right.
It kind of forced them, not forced, but it encouraged the people, like, let's use them more, regardless of the original story. Just like, these are part of the new, like, stable of recurring villains.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, like, although I have to say, I think maybe Stephen Moffat just had the wisdom of hindsight where he knew kind of what happened before when the popularity of a monster surged so much. But when the Weeping Angels do come back in Flesh and Stone / Time of Angels, they're doing something completely different. They're not sending people back in time, but what they're doing, it feeds back into, like, the overall arc of series 5, and I think it's kind of clever that way. because, you know, it does take a pre-existing monster and do something pretty different with them. But it's like, it's different. Like, they're still going after like time energy. It's like, but I do like that. Although, you know, you're absolutely right that, you know, that like their sort of gimmick completely changes or seems to completely change in their very next appearance. So I guess it is kind of similar in that regard.
Yeah. This doesn't have that level of cleverness, I don't think.
No.
It's just more Daleks because give the people what they want.
I mean, like,
fair enough, I think, though.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I really wish, like, would it have been so hard for Terry Nation to just invent some kind of explanation for why they wanted to do this? Like, why they thought this would be useful? I don't know, just anything. Like, any reason would have been sufficient. They could have, you know, I'm sure they could have chopped out some of the middle parts that I don't remember.
It's an end in itself, really.
I guess, because, you know, that's the thing is, you know, I guess it really is because, you know, once you get there, once you have that, where do you go from there? You know, you've basically arrived. Like that's it. You've won. You have all the cards or whatever. You know, there are no worlds left to conquer. This is just, you've done it.
You know, if I know anything from my philosophy education in college and skimming the works of Kant, I know that in terms of ethics, mm-hmm. there are means to an end and there are ends in themselves.
Yes.
And I believe he says that hollowing out a planet and piloting it around like a giant spaceship is an end in itself.
I think it's got to be. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's from the genealogy on the metaphysics of morals. Or whatever that thing is called.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you were absolutely right.
I'm just going to Google that to see if that's actually what it's called. No, it's just, is that what it's called? Grounding for the Metaphysics of Morals. Genealogy of Morals is a Nietzsche thing. So, yeah, never mind.
Do you want to take a run at it again so that
we're gonna be fine.
Okay, fine.
We're gonna be fine.
All right, yeah, we can be wrong on this program, I think.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, so it's just not very well established, but there's some, the Daleks sure are in this, and it sure is like, I don't really object to it in any meaningful way. It just doesn't make for that great of a story.
No, I mean, like, yeah, that's the thing is, you know, but I guess, like, I get really kind of weird because I get on this like sort of slippery slope where like I kind of feel like it's all meaningless anyway. Like why bother? Like why bother trying to tell a good story? They're all just made up anyway. Like I don't know. Like something like eventually like I get into a feedback loop. But I feel like, you know, I know that like even if you know, Terry Nation had come up with this really, really interesting reason for why the Daleks needed to hollow out Earth and pilot it around like a spaceship, it would still just be a meaningless thing that the Doctor would spend maybe 5 minutes thwarting, and it would never actually happen. So it's almost pointless. We almost don't need to know. I mean, like,
wow.
I don't know. I know it's terrible. I shouldn't. I need to stop thinking along these lines. But that's what happens.
You just ruined Doctor Who.
I think I continually and relentlessly ruin all of fiction for myself every single time I think along those lines. But anyway, yeah. But I mean, like, but that's the thing is, like, I really want to know, and you know, and the thing is, if Stephen Moffat wants to take some time, I don't really care why the 12th Doctor looks like Caecilius or whatever. But you know, if Stephen Moffat wants to like retcon why the Daleks wanted to hollow out the Earth, I'd be all right with him spending an episode or two doing that. And actually, I'm kind of wondering, like, why has no future writer? I guess maybe there is no answer, and all future writers realize the folly of trying to provide an answer.
Yeah, I mean,
but like that would be like the retcon to end all retcons. That would be amazing. But I mean, like, it's also, I mean, maybe maybe the Dalek Invasion of Earth is like some kind of sacred cow where you just don't want to touch it.
Yeah, I mean, it does have that like pride of place in like Doctor Who's iconic history.
Yeah.
So I think that alone like makes it seem untouchable.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
But like, you know, like this show is now being written by fans. Are you telling me that no one of the writers has like a bit of headcanon for what the Daleks were doing here?
Well, Big Finish revisits this actually revisits the setting of like the post-apocalyptic Earth of Dalek Invasion of Earth.
Oh, really?
And there is a further story that involves the Daleks coming back and trying again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do they do any better?
Well, they are... They... I don't know if I want to say any spoilers, because it's in this story called To the Death. And it has disastrous... Like, this is a big, serious story.
Oh.
This is, like, not a fun, lighthearted, oh, goofy, like, we're going to hollow out the molten core of the Earth. This is, like, a serious story about the Eighth Doctor and Susan and Lucy Miller, one of the Eighth Doctor's companions from audios that we've listened to.
Yeah.
And it's, like, the big finale of the Eighth Doctor and Lucy Miller arc. And it's huge. It's a huge story. But the Daleks still want to hollow out that molten core and drive the Earth around like a spaceship.
But that story doesn't give an answer either, or is...
No, I don't think it really does.
Well, I think, right. What's the rule about things? In threes. I think maybe if the Daleks just try a third time, third time's the charm.
Yeah,
we could bring that back for Series 10 maybe. And then maybe we could, maybe they could finally throw in just as an addendum, an explanation this time for why they're doing that. There's got to be something, especially if they want to do it this bad.
Well, the thing is, and this is a minor spoiler. They're actually trying in the second time they attempt it with Big Finish. They're actually trying to turn it into a time machine.
Oh, okay.
They're trying to turn the Earth not into a spaceship, but into a space-time ship.
Oh,
so I don't know what they could do for the third attempt.
Yeah. There's only so many dimensions. Yeah, no, I don't know. I guess theoretically there is another dimension.
Yeah.
That is outside of both time and space. That maybe they could want to pilot it through that as well.
Yeah, as many as you can get.
Why not? But yeah, no, okay. You see, well, and that's that. Okay, see that right there though is better, because I feel like there are a lot of things you could do with a time machine. I mean, like that in and of itself.
There are a lot of things you could do with a spaceship.
I realize that, but like, here's the thing: they clearly had a spaceship in order to get to Earth. Oh, actually, wait a minute. Hang on. Didn't they say? So, this is another thing I forget. Is this story chronologically would happen before the Daleks?
Absolutely, because the Daleks seems to be the final end of the Daleks, because it's the death of the last Daleks. Right. Whether that's actually the truth of the Doctor Who canon is debatable, but the intention for this story is clearly that this is the I think the Doctor says the middle part of Dalek history.
Yes. Right. Huh. Yeah, okay, so, that turns everything around, So it's like now, who knows what their motivation could have been, because, because they weren't resigned to a static electricity based way of life yet, or something. I don't know.
Right.
Huh. Yeah. I don't know. Not that really helps at all.
I don't think it does. It doesn't help me.
No. But my bigger point is, they already had spaceships. They didn't need. I mean, unless like there's some benefit to having a spaceship that is so large it has its own gravity well or whatever. I mean, I guess that's kind of cool. Own gravity well and atmosphere. I mean, like like the benefits of taking your planet with you. Like if we could if we the human race could explore space just by taking our planet with us, that's pretty useful. Because like that's the big limitation is like we can't really get outside of our solar system. We can barely get past Mars or whatever. Because, well, first of all, there's not much there for us to like land on, but like also, it's difficult for us to take all of our, nutrients and atmospheres and stuff with us that, whatever it'll take.
Lewis.
What?
Stop talking.
Okay, sorry.
Because I've come up with it.
Okay,
listen, you're going to like this.
All right, I'm waiting.
This is why the Daleks want to pilot Earth as a spaceship.
Okay.
Because, this is their first attempt to do what they later do in Journey's End.
Oh, of course.
I knew you were going to like it.
I do like it.
So, in Series 4, they're stealing planets for a reason, because they have to bring them to the Medusa Cascade and do some nonsense to build a reality bomb to destroy reality.
Of course, because, the whole thing is exterminate.
Exactly.
Because they don't...
So,
yes.
Unbeknownst to anyone involved in this story, this Dalek Invasion of Earth is actually an attempt to facilitate that plan on behalf of the new series version of post-Time War Davros, who is trying to get the Earth to the Medusa Cascade. It doesn't work here, so that's why he tries the more sophisticated version.
The bee-based method.
Yes, just use bees.
Of course. Oh my god, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
That's it. All right, we've done it.
It does, doesn't it? I mean, yeah. That has to be it.
It does. You know what? It does. It really does. It makes so much sense.
It would take a very long time to pilot planets that way,
right?
Because you'd presumably have to go at sublight speeds, I guess. But maybe there's no rush.
That's the thing, They don't have a deadline.
Yeah, they presumably don't have a deadline. So that's it. I can't believe it.
Yeah, no, there it is. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. Yeah, do you
sorry for interrupting you though.
No. I'm glad you did, because that is a perfect that's perfect. That's a perfect machine right there. Yeah, like do you think RTD even had that in mind when he wrote Journey's End? I mean, I feel like it's too big. I mean, like, come on, they're stealing Earth again.
I don't know. It might well be that he did. I don't know if he necessarily had that specific, this is a headcanon that explains that, but it could be that he was, doing a callback there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I mean, the thing is that as a great writer, he leaves a little bit of wiggle room for us to fill in the gaps here, and make it all work. And I think it's perfect. I think this has got to be it.
Yeah. It's just got to be it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, they fail.
Yeah, they do. Presumably they fail on, like Clom and the Lost Moon of Poosh and all those other places, and they have to like come and use bees. I don't know. I guess you find bees on all those planets.
Yeah, I don't remember what the explanation was, but maybe this was their first attempt. Earth was the first planet they even tried with. So maybe they never got around to trying, or maybe they did. Maybe they had similar Dalek invasions that also failed on all those planets.
Yeah, you're right. You start with the beta, you start with the pilot program, and then you work from there. So yeah, I think we could say that Earth was probably the beta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, this makes so much sense.
That justifies the whole story.
It does. You know what? I love it now.
It doesn't necessarily make the boring parts less, or does it? Does it make the boring parts less boring?
I don't know if we can figure out, if there's some benefit to them for, how that fits in with Journey's End. I mean, now I'm trying to figure out more parallels to Journey's End.
I don't even like Journey's End all that much, but
I thought you did.
You know what? I did the first time, and then on my recent rewatch of all the episodes, I was kind of like, this doesn't hold up so well.
Yeah, it's a little. You know what? I don't want to get into Journey's End, but it is a little bit much. Yeah, I'll say that about it.
It's fun seeing all the characters though, like all the characters that they bring back. It's fun.
It is. It's fun, and I think
like seeing Jack and Sarah Jane interacting. That's fun.
Yeah, I feel like that's really like Russell T Davies' like primary objective is fun. I feel like most of the time with his stories, they're more about fun than they are about being weird and sciencey and stuff. Like I feel like that stuff kind of falls to the wayside a little bit, and he just wants to have a fun story. And you know what? I can respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So, Dalek Invasion of Earth has been solved.
I think it has. I think we can put this one to bed.
Does it make sense, the Doctor leaving Susan?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing is I don't know, because that whole plot line is a little bit weird to me, because she just meets this guy, and I know they go through like this this traumatic experience together, but by the end of it, like she's like professing her love to him, and I mean I guess that's fine, but I mean that's how fiction generally works, but I don't know, like I feel like it's a little flimsy for her to like just like abandon basically the last remnant of her culture, which is like her grandfather and their TARDIS.
Yeah, and I mean, for us, we have a sense of like what the Time Lords are, so it's easier for us to have a sense of like what exactly it was she was leaving behind than anyone would have had at the time, because those concepts didn't really exist. But there was still a sense, she and the Doctor were cut off from their own people. This was the only life she had now, and the Doctor just makes the decision for her to shove her out of the not literally shove her out of the TARDIS, but lock her out of the TARDIS and prevent her from coming. But he takes Ian and Barbara because they can come along. Why not?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, he leaves her out there on a post-apocalyptic planet.
Right. This is not like the fourth great and bountiful human empire. Right. This is like they're gonna have to like eke out a living. And I mean, in a sense, like it's a little optimistic because I guess they can like rebuild and stuff, and that's kind of cool. It's like being able to rebuild the Earth. It's not every day you get to do that. But yeah, no, it's certainly not the most, like, I mean, if assuming that, like, you want to, and I assume, I don't have grandchildren, let alone children, but I imagine you want, like, the best for them. I'm assuming.
Probably.
I think, like, unless you're, like, a completely heartless and terrible person, you want the best for them. And so, I mean, all right, I guess Susan has, like, true love or whatever. But I mean, like, I don't know. You're still gonna be, like, in a grimy.
Try to put a bit more cynicism in your voice. There, say it again, but with a little bit more cynicism.
True love.
Ugh.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. In any case.
I don't know. I guess she has that. At least she has true love. But I mean, like, it seems a little strange for the Doctor to make this decision for her and just, like, leave her to this.
Yeah, and this is the first character to be written out of the show.
Oh, right. Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, I just think it's so strange because, I don't know, I mean, they can't have had the notion at the time that, so we're just going to have him travel with his granddaughter for 2 years, then lock her out of the TARDIS, and then the show will continue on for another 49 years without his granddaughter, who's part of the core cast right now.
Yeah, that's so bizarre.
It is bizarre, and, like, if they had the concept of regeneration, maybe they just would have regenerated her, because I presume the reason she left is because Carol Ann Ford wanted to leave.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure that's true, but I think it probably is.
Yeah.
So I guess, and then they brought in Vicky in the next story. But I don't know. It's just a very strange scene because it doesn't seem to make much sense that why here and now. Is this really the place for her? She doesn't ask for it. The Doctor doesn't even seem to notice anything about their relationship during the course of the story, but then all of a sudden he's, like, aware of it, and then he, forces it on her and leaves her behind. And the way it's shot and everything is very weird, like with Susan's big emotional reactions, and, like, she seems physically overcome, which I guess that makes a certain amount of sense. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting to watch. And then the slow sort of somber music that plays after the TARDIS dematerializes.
Yeah.
It's all, I don't know, it's very strange. I don't love it.
Yeah. Well, and especially because this is, like, supposed to be this big iconic moment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is very strange. Yeah, I just don't know.
Yeah, I also actually don't like Susan all that much as a character.
Well, because right, like, wasn't, like, I mean, I certainly in everything I've seen of her, I think, she's mostly just serving the role of, like, getting injured or, causing some sort of problem. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's a few times where she's able to do something a little more interesting. I think the love story here is not the best example of that. And I don't think Carol Ann Ford is the greatest actor. I also think her voice is a little bit annoying. Maybe it's not her voice itself, but her constant, like, grandfather, like, all that, and it's just like, yeah. I do find her a little annoying. I don't like hate her, but the character just, I don't know, doesn't do much for me, so I'm not that sorry to see her go. I just don't think it's a great way of getting rid of her. I don't know.
Yeah, especially, given all the farewells that we've had since then. This is kind of this is a little bit weird. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, obviously, like, the caliber of story and, like, arcs and stuff have gotten better in later years. But yeah, it seems so weird that, like, we really don't, like, Susan never really gets, like, any kind of, like, story arc or anything. And, it's not like I don't know, if this had somehow like resolved some arc that had existed since the first episode. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't think it really does. Not so as you'd notice. Like, there isn't like Susan and the Doctor gradually growing apart or anything like that, or her, yearning to find a place to belong.
Right.
Or anything like that. Those aren't, like, recurring elements that are satisfied by this closure.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. But
yeah.
Yeah. Would you want to see Susan back?
I mean, I know that always comes up, and I kind of feel like I want to say yes just to see what it would be like, because this is, like, this is the first time in the show that, we see someone leave. So I mean, like, but in addition to that, it's like, because, this is the Doctor's granddaughter. This isn't just someone he's met in his travels. This is, like, someone who's actually related to him and, presumably has, like, grown up with him. And I mean, obviously, I guess various characters have, quote unquote, grown up with the Doctor, but, I think it would be interesting, but I don't know if they would, if it would be, like, worthwhile. I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, obviously they could regenerate her, have a new actress come in and treat it as essentially a different character.
Yeah.
And characterize her in whatever way they wanted to, and it would depend entirely on that, I think.
Yeah.
On, like, what kind of character would she even be, and how would she interact with the Doctor. So there's so many different things you could do. I think Big Finish's attempt to bring her back with the Eighth Doctor, the story arc that they did that kind of resulted from the Doctor reuniting with her, is actually one of my favorite Big Finish story arcs.
Huh.
So I think they've done a pretty good job with it. I don't know about bringing her back to the series. I say, if they want to do it, I mean, if it's cool.
Yeah.
If it's good, do it. If it's not, don't.
Yeah. That's how it should be. Well, and that's kind of the thing is, like, I don't want to walk the line and say, like, well, sure, do it if there's a good story reason for it. I mean, like, I don't know. I just don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. If it's like, I don't want them to, like, if they can do something fun and interesting with it, and I feel like you could do something fun and interesting with the character of Susan. I think you could do that. So yeah, go ahead and do it. If they can, they should. I don't know.
Sure. Which cast do you like better?
You're talking about like movie versus serial?
The movie versus TV cast.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I really like Bernard Cribbins. Like,
he's pretty good.
He's pretty good, and I don't know if it was just because I'd seen him in obviously the new series, but it was just so nice seeing him, and he has, I don't know, it's not even like mannerisms. It's just like how he moves.
Yeah, he's very good at physical comedy, like the comic relief bit with like him impersonating the Robomen.
Yeah,
that was a very good addition to the story, I thought.
Yeah, like that was worthwhile. That was a worthwhile change. Yeah, no, I don't know. I really like Bernard Cribbins. I mean, no, I just like him. But like, as far as the other characters go, I'm not so sure. I mean,
they're all just really dull, personally.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the same affection that I do necessarily for the first Doctor era and the original cast, with Ian and Barbara and the Hartnell Doctor, then you may feel the same way about them. But I don't. I love them so much. I just love Ian and Barbara.
Yeah.
I think Barbara's really great. Ian is kind of, I don't know, he's kind of like almost a little bit generic, but he's also kind of fun. So
yeah. He's kind of actiony. It's good stuff. I like it.
You know who I really liked in the movie?
Who?
I didn't even know who he was in this, but Philip Maddock. I don't know if you know who that is.
I don't.
So he's well known for a number of guest roles in Doctor Who, including the Warlord, not the War Chief, but the Warlord in the War Games. And he was also in The Power of Kroll. He was one of the scientists.
Oh, right.
And we talked about him at the time, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he plays the creep in the trench coat who turns the Doctor into the Daleks. I don't know. I really liked that. He was the sketchiest guy, and he was such a good, sketchy guy, and he did such a good job of that.
Yeah.
And there was a great part where, like, the Doctor and his friend that was with him, whose name I won't bother to remember, just like he looks at there's like some food on a fire or something, and then Philip Maddox's character is like, "Oh, do you want some?" He's like, "Yeah," and then he just kicks the can over. I think that's what happened in that scene. But anyway, I loved that. I loved him in this. He's just got like an interesting stage presence, or screen presence rather.
Yeah.
And I just thought he was fun.
Yeah, and it's and that's the thing is, just getting back to the characters being dull. I kind of agree with that, although I feel like I'm almost, I don't want to say that I'm warming up to Peter Cushing, but like I feel like I disliked him more in the first movie than I do here. Like he's still kind of bumbling, and he's sort of like absent-minded, but I don't know if it's like the performance we've gotten from like Matt Smith since then, but like because like Matt Smith does a pretty good job of being oblivious sometimes.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I don't like Cushing's Doctor very much. I like him more in this than I think I think I like him more in this than I like him in the first one, but even in this he's just kind of bland. And I find Hartnell more interesting.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, I don't know. I like the dialogue that's given to William Hartnell, like when he makes some joke about Boyle's law that I thought was
yes,
really
like
humorous.
we shall have to boil it or something like that.
We'll have to boil it down or something like that. I forget what he.
Yeah, that was a good joke.
Yeah, I like that. So that was good. So yeah, no, I feel like if I have to like choose between William Hartnell and Peter Cushing, yeah, I'm obviously gonna choose William Hartnell.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, that's not even a question. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I feel like Peter Cushing could be worse. I mean, he doesn't really have like, because he's not really the Doctor is the thing. He's a human scientist. So
he's Doctor Who.
He's Doctor Who. He's Dr. Period. So I feel like you got to cut him some slack. He's just not going to be as interesting as a Time Lord, because you can never be as interesting as a Time Lord.
Yeah. I mean, we may have mentioned this last time, but I'm a huge fan of his performance in Star Wars, like as Grand Moff Tarkin.
Oh yeah.
I think he's just really good in that role.
Huh.
He just eats that role up, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like he's such like a sneering, like calm, measured villain. I don't know. I just think he's great in that. But he, I don't know. Just here, I just could take or leave him.
Yeah, so maybe he, I don't know, yeah, maybe he didn't really get as much of a feel for this role as he did for...
Yeah. And as for, like, Louise and Little Susan, I mean, just completely forgettable, in my opinion. Cribbins is great, but Louise and Little Susan, it's just like, yeah, no.
Yeah, I can't really remember anything distinct about either of them, although I did think it was kind of funny that Susan seemed to be, like, the most sensible, like she was sort of like, okay, well... my grandfather's probably going to want to explore this, so let's just head here. And like
that's a good point.
And like completely like savvy of like the plot itself or whatever. And she was just like, you know what? Let's just cut all of this and just like cut right to the chase. Let's just head to this place that I know my grandfather's going to want to go to. Mm-hmm. And they sort of bypass like a lot of meandering that could have occurred. And so like that's the one thing that stood out to me about Susan there. And that's but thinking about it, that's really it. So I guess otherwise pretty forgettable.
But yeah, Cribbins, as you say, is good. He's fun in this. I don't like his character here as much as I like Wilf, but
well, yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah. Wilf is the greatest.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. If Bernard Cribbins wanted to, I would say he should come back as like a companion forever. And just be. He's probably not up for that.
No, probably not.
He must be getting pretty up there in terms.
He is. I don't know. I also don't know what else he's up to these days, but
right. And I think. He's had a pretty long and illustrious career. He deserves some respite, perhaps, if he's into that. Or, if he's not, then, whatever.
It is forbidden to dump bodies in the river.
It definitely is. Is
and
that true?
It took them a while to see that sign.
Yeah, well, and yeah, it's like, I guess it's like whatever inverse would be of that TV trope. Behind the black, where it's like I don't know, like the idea being that like if the audience can't see it, then the characters can't see it. But it's like the inverse of that, where like the audience sees it, but the characters don't until it's like way unreasonably past the point where they should have noticed it. I don't know.
Well, a similar thing in the movie with Susan's note to her grandfather, and just like the guy who's with the Doctor is just like looking right at it, but doesn't see it. Yeah.
That's for comedic effect, I guess. That's nice. But yeah, so did that need saying, and also does the Thames currently allow you to dump bodies? Is that why that's
No, I think it related to the plague that was alluded to that prefaced the Dalek invasion. Yeah, so I think that's what that was about. I thought overall, like with the posters and with the the vetoed stickers all over the place, I don't know what that means, but I like the one where there's a vetoed on the elephant. I thought that was kind of funny looking. But yeah, I think they did just an overall good job in, honestly, in both the TV series and the movie of like realizing the prehistoric landscape.
Yeah,
not prehistoric, post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, that's the thing. I do love like the setting and the mood and stuff like that, and like that whole first episode where they're just exploring, like that's so good. I mean they did such a good job there, and if it had been complemented by like a really interesting plot that was like well thought out, obviously like now we know it was they were trying to detonate a reality bomb. This was like the first attempt.
Yeah.
But, had that been, spelled out in this episode, I think that would have been really great. And, this could have been like the greatest episode of Doctor Who ever.
It really could have been. I mean, I don't know. I really do like post-apocalyptic fiction, I guess, which is kind of like it's like the hip thing now, or maybe it was just like the hip thing like 2 years ago, like with the Hunger Games and with Divergent, and it's all these like post-apocalyptic. It's like almost a genre unto itself now, like paranormal romance was with Twilight, and then its imitators. So it's like a big young adult fiction thing, and I don't know what that says about our current society, but but yeah, I just seeing on film, like realizing the post-apocalyptic landscape, I always find that really enjoyable just to watch.
Yeah.
Just because it's so interesting to see sometimes.
Yeah.
And I often find that, what's after that will vary in whether or not it holds my interest. Like I remember with The Walking Dead, the first episode of The Walking Dead was great as far as how I was concerned. But, everything after that was less interesting to me because I was a little less interested. Characters, zombies, just like post-apocalypse. Yeah, I just like seeing it.
Yeah, like that's the thing is because we live in this. It's almost like I want to say like narcissistic in a way, in that like we know what our society looks like, and we live in it. So imagine if it just all turned to shit, and just like imagine I guess it's not narcissistic at all, but like just the idea that like here's this thing that we've completely internalized. Now let's take it and turn it, if you will. Like here it is. Here's these buildings, crumbling. Here's like ivy creeping up the sides of this, stone edifice or whatever that used to be some monument or whatever. It's so, I don't know, just like really kind of, it's just so fascinating, to see how that's realized and like how it would actually play out. Like, oh yeah, this is what everything would look like if humans just abandoned it all or were all killed or whatever.
Yeah, and some version of it is going to happen someday.
Yeah,
like maybe not these buildings, but there will be some buildings that are institutions to the humans of the time, and then there will be no more humans.
Yeah,
in that time or place, or perhaps any time or place.
Yeah.
So the remnants of human society will degrade. Like there will be a decline probably.
Yeah. Like
it could be just we all go at once, but it's also possible that there will just be a slow decline. People like scrabbling around the ruins of what once was, and it's just, I don't know, it's just an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah.
It's almost like the opposite of watching like nature documentaries, because like this is where it all comes from.
Yeah,
this is like the world in its undisturbed state, and then watching post-apocalyptic fiction, even if it is fiction, is like seeing the other end of that.
Yeah, really. Yeah, it's so like it touches on something like yeah, I don't know. I just something about it like just sort of like gives you like this really deep perspective on like. On where we fit in like the history of the cosmos or whatever, and we're just really like this blip, and and nothing really highlights that, like saying like, yeah, this is how it's gonna end, all these great things we did, and all these huge monuments we built, they're all gonna crumble someday, and and the universe is just not gonna care, and like it's just gonna keep on ticking without the human race, and or at least yeah, I mean, like that's the thing is we just don't know, but like it's just so fascinating to think about, like yeah, like we feel pretty unstoppable right now, like like I mean, yeah, like there's issues like climate change, and that kind of thing could seriously like hinder us, but like it doesn't feel like we're on the brink of a collapse or anything. It feels like we've covered every inch of this planet, and we're more or less thriving, and it doesn't feel like that's going to end anytime soon, but it absolutely could, and it absolutely will someday.
Yeah, and it could be a plague, it could be global warming,
yeah.
It could be nuclear holocaust, it could be just like what happens in this story, that someone bigger and badder from elsewhere just comes in and cleans up.
Yeah.
And it could also be that things get really bad, and then it somehow gets sorted out and you have to rebuild from there.
Yeah.
So it could be that, a pseudo-apocalypse like this happens, and then humans are left in a position where they can rebuild, so they're like in the ruins of something else. where they have to kind of start their own thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's also kind of a fascinating thing. So,
yeah.
I mean, none of this is really specific to this story, but I do think it kind of adds to the interest of this story for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and so this gets back to that first episode where they're exploring all this is like it's so interesting to me like how that all came to be, and and just like in a broader sense, like this is what would happen if everything was in ruins. Like that's just what it would be like. Yeah, so I really do like that, and that's like that's like one of the easiest ways to like pique my curiosity is like to put it in a post-apocalyptic world where where you're exploring how things got to be that way. Like that's just so, it's so good. But yeah.
Then you have to actually tell a good story.
Right. That's like the thing is that's where once you've got me invested, that's where you're supposed to follow through with an interesting story about an interesting story hopefully set in that environment that sort of like plays off of that. Yeah, that's the dream. That's the ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the big things I noticed that was different between the serial and the movie was how many more explosions there were in the movie.
Oh, well, of course.
Which I thought was much more entertaining, although I don't know what Mary Whitehouse would have had to say about that.
Yeah, exactly. But also, I mean, there were a lot more Daleks in the movie.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, like you could see more Daleks on screen at a time. But the Daleks, I mean, I hate the steam weapon.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
Yeah, did we talk about that last time?
I don't know.
I think the reason for that is because there was some reason why the effect done on video was not easily replicated on film.
Oh.
So they just did this other thing instead, but it's just not. It's just not as good.
No, it's not. I mean, I guess you could sort of. I guess we're meant to assume it's some kind of like, or it's supposed to be some kind of poison gas, maybe. But I mean, like it's you have one. I remember like there was one. I think it was when they were escaping from the spaceship where you see somebody just like outrun the Daleks shooting at him. Like he like this guy runs off into the distance and they're shooting at him, but like their gas blasts can't get far enough or whatever.
Right.
And he just basically runs like that's not how the Daleks are supposed to be. They're supposed to have like pinpoint accurate aim from 50 miles away or whatever. The Daleks they should be able to shoot whatever wherever. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, they could have come up with something better.
Yeah. I also don't understand why in the movie, like as they are boarding the spaceship, I guess like it's the people who are disguised as the Robomen. One of them like takes a Dalek and throws it down the ramp, and when it gets to the bottom of the ramp, it just explodes.
Yeah.
and then they try to use the bombs, and the bombs don't work. When all they needed to do, apparently...
Just use the Daleks.
Right, just throw them down a gentle slope, and then problem solved.
Throw them at one another.
Right. Apparently, they are all just really combustible.
Yeah.
But, But yeah, I kind of appreciated the charm of the movie in that, like, okay, yeah, they're trying to do this big thing where there's all these explosions and there's this kind of like jazzy soundtrack almost.
Oh yeah,
it's
it's a big spectacle because it's a movie. Yeah. And it does well in that regard. There are a lot of regards in which I think it's the inferior story, but it definitely does well in that regard.
Yeah, it's got its charms.
And I think in some ways that's what a lot of people just wanted from the Daleks.
Yeah.
I mean, these movies apparently were not hugely successful. Well, I mean, the second one did not warrant a sequel, even though there were plans to maybe make one.
Oh, right. I remember reading that somewhere, maybe on the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, so they were thinking of doing another one based on the third serial, The Chase. The third Dalek serial, that is, The Chase. Which, I don't know. I mean, the thing about The Chase, which I guess you probably haven't seen, is that The Chase is just like an anthology of mini Dalek stories in different locations. So it's like, all right, this one's on the Mary Celeste, the ship Mary Celeste. This one's on the top of a New York skyscraper. This one's in a haunted house. This one's in a desert planet. This one's, So it just goes from place to place to place, have many little Dalek things, and then they leave.
That's weird.
Yeah, and that's the whole, it's a chase. The Daleks are chasing them through time and space.
Oh,
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, that doesn't sound to me like something that would hang together as a movie that well. It sounds to me more like a weekly serial.
Hey, how about that?
Yeah, but it could also be interesting because you could do like if you had a lot of money to throw at something like that, you could maybe do something really good.
That's true. Yeah, but yeah. So I guess we'll never know though.
We will never know. Although it may be at some point in the future that there is another big screen Doctor Who movie.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is, like Doctor Who, has become hugely popular. And well, now I guess there's a ton of movie rumors, but like it's weird that that while the Daleks became hugely popular in the 60s, the Daleks have not become disproportionately popular from Doctor Who again. I think they're still kind of in check because it's more like the Doctor Who merchandise is like kind of all over the place. Like, yeah, you've got Dalek themed stuff, but you got a lot of TARDIS themed stuff, and so I feel like the Daleks aren't that big of a, unless I'm mistaken, and maybe it is in like parts of the world, like in the UK. But
I think that's generally true.
Yeah, so I wonder why like Daleks have not recaptured the imagination like they did.
I don't know. I think that was really just like the 60s.
I
like
guess.
Even by the 70s, I mean, the Daleks, I mean, they were still like they were a cultural institution because of that time in the 60s, basically. So and they're kind of self-perpetuating as a cultural institution associated with Doctor Who, which is why you can't just say, all right, we're phasing the Daleks out of Doctor Who. It just seems unthinkable.
Right.
Because they're just a part and parcel of the whole thing, and I think they'll probably always be.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to rise above Doctor Who and like spin off.
Yeah. Well,
aside from like Dalek Empire that Big Finish did.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. See, yeah, that would just be too much. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll probably never get another DR period Who movie.
I very much doubt it. I think if they were ever to do another movie, it would, I don't know, I guess it would probably be in continuity with the TV series. I mean, I say ever. I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So if there were to do another movie while the current TV series was in production, I mean, based on the current climate, I have to think they would probably defer to the showrunner's wishes, which would probably be to have it in continuity with the show.
Yeah. Yeah, because you could do this whole tie-in thing or whatever. I don't know. I mean, that's the thing though, is like, what stories would only work on the big screen? I mean, like, Doctor Who does, great stuff on just TV. What stories really need a movie to tell is the thing. I mean, I guess we wouldn't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's nothing you really can't do on the TV anymore.
Right.
They used to be much more different, and they're less different now.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe just something that you needed a phenomenal amount of money in, like something you want a lot of guest actors in, or something where you want a lot of different locations in one story. I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, like it almost seems, I don't know. I have difficulty imagining it because it just seems unnecessary. I mean, it seems, or what it would feel like to me is just like an attempt to get more money. But, yeah. I mean, I don't know.
And sometimes that's, something that people do.
Well, yeah,
I don't know. I would think, like, if they were going to do a Doctor Who movie, I would want to try to, like, encapsulate Doctor Who as much as it could.
Right.
For the people who are just going to watch that.
Right.
So they get a sense of, like, hey, this is Doctor Who. So I would want it to include, like, at least one, like, alien world and at least one, like, really well-realized historical setting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could take a lot of money to do that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing though, is how do you encapsulate Doctor Who? I mean, like, yeah, you could do it as best you could with doing those two things, but I mean, like, that's just such a monumental task to like really like nail it and like really capture everything you want to, like everything that Doctor Who is. Like that's the risk you run there is like you get into just like way more detail than you need to, or you just get bogged down with stuff. I don't know. I almost just don't want them to. I just want them to not try.
Day of the Doctor came close, I think.
That's true. Yeah, that was.
And it was in movie theaters.
It was in movie theaters. They basically have already had a movie, so they're all set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No need.
No need at all.